Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? This is Jeff from BKJMAC TV, and this is the BKJMAC podcast experience coming to you live from Brooklyn. All right, tonight's episode is a shocking one. It's all over social media right now. Social media is going crazy, and right now it's from Apple. It's from Team Apple. The news that I'm referring to is Apple to finally bring RCS to iPhones. I'm going to say it again. Apple to finally bring RCS to iPhones. So if people want to know what RCS means, it means Rich Communication Services. Rich Communication Services. That's what it means. And most of the industry has adopted RCS as the norm, universal norm. And Apple intentionally decided to hold back, basically trying to sabotage the system. But a court order from the European Union that was about to come down against Apple basically made them switch their gears and decided to adopt RCS into the Apple ecosystem. In this article by MS, written on Thursday, November 16th, here we go. This is what she writes. Apple plans to add support for the RCS standard on iOS next year. The iPhone maker said Thursday in a major reversal that would resolve the widespread issue of capability in text messaging between iPhones and Android smartphones, but stopped short of eliminating what is known quickly as the green bubble dread. So even though Apple is adopting RCS standard, they're still letting you know Android is green, iMessage is blue. They're still keeping the color distinctions between the two. So that's just Apple being petty as usual. It's additionally in the article, it states Apple's long-standing unwillingness to support RCS has perpetrated fragmentation in messaging ecosystems, particularly affecting Android users. Critics have argued over the years Apple's stance, often seen as maintaining ecosystem exclusivity, stirred debate in the tech community over interoperability and user convenience. Basically, Apple wanted to be exclusive with its iMessage away from Android. They did the same thing with Type-C. They used their so-called lightning chargers from before iPhone 15 to maintain an exclusive section within tech stores to make sure that people were buying only iPhone products and not any other products like Android was, when all the other Androids was pushing Type-C connectivity. But again, once the European Union spoke, they changed minds. They changed their mind really quickly, and now that's why it's all over social media now. Anyhow, well, no more. In their above announcement today, Apple said it too believes that RCS Universal Profile will offer a better interoperability experience when compared to SMS or MMS. The company, which plans to roll out the support next year, added this will work alongside iMessage, which will continue to be the best and most secure messaging experience for Apple users. So they're adding it, like I mentioned earlier, they're adding it alongside iMessage. So clearly Apple will not scrap out iMessage. They're just working alongside it. The major reversal follows Google's repeated requests and public pressure on Apple to add support for RCS to iPhones. People have talked about green bubbles as an Android problem. HL SVP at Google tweeted last year referring to the visual distinction seen when a message is sent from an Android user to an iPhone, where it appears in a green bubble. Yes, to that distinction. While Apple plans to adopt RCS, it has confirmed that those messages will still be displayed in green bubbles, of course. We're not asking Apple to make iMessage available on Android. We're asking Apple to support the industry standard for modern messaging, RCS, in iMessage, just as they support the older SMS and MMS standards. By not incorporating RCS, Apple is holding back the industry and holding back the user experience for not only Android users, but also their own customers, he tweeted. And that is absolutely true. Apple was at the time holding back the industry before this decision was made, and so abruptly now. It's been years. Google was lobbying Apple to make this change, and for so long Apple resisted. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, resisted this change. They felt like it was not necessary for Apple or its bottom line, but now their bottom line was about to be affected. It's one of the major reasons why they decided to make this change. Apple too hasn't been shy about its feeling on RCS. Apple chief Tim Cook, like I mentioned earlier, dismissed the idea of his company adopting RCS in iMessage a year ago and suggested the questioner at a conference to buy their mom an iPhone. Rich Communication Services, or RCS, is the collective effort of a number of industry players to supercharge the traditional SMS with modern features such as richer text and end-to-end encryption. Google, Samsung, and a number of other firms, including telecom operators, have rolled out support for RCS to over 800 million users worldwide in recent years. Over 800 million users are on the RCS standard, and Apple is about to get on board. Critics argue that the disruption in group chats and interactions between Android and iPhone users has historically deterred many from transitioning to Android smartphones, and it's by design. This tactic came to light in Apple's legal battle with Epic Games, where internal discussions revealed a conscious decision to keep iMessage within its ecosystem. So honestly, it's like, yeah, it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. During the legal battle, a wealth of internal Apple documents became accessible to the public. These documents expose a pre-long internal debate about introducing iMessage to Android-operated devices in the absence of a strategy to become the primary messaging service for bulk of cell phone users. I am concerned the iMessage on Android would simply serve to remove obstacle to iPhone families giving their kids Android phones. Craig Finitiggi, Apple's chief software executive, said in a 2013 email. He said, "I am concerned the iMessage on Android would simply serve to remove obstacle to iPhone families giving their kids Android phones." Phil Schiller, the then marketing chief, echoed the sentiment in 2016, advising Cook in an email, "Moving iMessage to Android will hurt us more than help us." That same year, an email from a former Apple executive cautioned that iMessage creates significant user retention, describing it as a serious lock-in. So basically, Apple was scared of losing its customers to Android. It's one of the reasons it did not offer the support. Apple's Thursday decision coincidentally follows Google and many telecom operators recently urging EU regulators to make Apple designate iMessage as a core service under the new Digital Markets Act, forcing the iPhone maker to make the chat app fully compatible with rivals. As TechCrunch first reported this month, Apple has disclosed in a filing that that it expects to make several policy changes to comply with the new guidelines that go into effect next year. So basically, it's a coincidence. It's not no coincidence that Apple is doing this. Again, their RCS standards ready by next year. The guidelines are going into effect next year. So Apple does not want to pay fines. It don't want to affect its bottom line. So they're doing what's necessary in order to make sure RCS is supported on the Apple phone. And if you're on Android, you'll be able to universally talk between each other, and you'll be able to see read text messages, send high quality messages, everything of that nature. And guess what? I don't know why Apple was so concerned. Apple phones are like still 10 times better. If anything, Apple sets the trend, and Android just copies off Apple like almost every time. Like seriously, Apple is the league leader in iPhones and services and tech. Android, they offer very little innovation between its vendors. But they mostly copy off Apple. Literally, they just copying off Apple. Whatever Apple puts out, they copy off of it, and they still can't sell as much numbers than the Apple iPhone. So at the end of the day, iPhone shouldn't worry, and Apple shouldn't worry about losing market share, because now they're integrating RCS into iMessage. If anything, they're probably going to increase sales in the iPhone, because honestly, people still prefer the iPhone over an Android phone any day. As honestly, iPhone is like a more expensive bougie taste. If you got the money, if you got the loot, you're buying an iPhone. Bottom line. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of the BKJMAC podcast experience. This was episode 45. Thank you for listening. Peace, love, always one.